So the question I was hoping would be asked is, what is something that you've done for Newton that will give people in the room the idea of what kind of mayor you would make? And so, since I had advance notice of the question, I have the answer. And the example I do like to share has to do with Hammond Pond. Hammond Pond is that pond behind Bloomingdale's, you know? Do we know the pond? Well, when I was first elected to the legislature, some folks who live behind the pond approached me and told me that we were losing the pond. This was not hyperbole. We were literally going to lose the pond in our lifetime because of a speeded up process of eutrophication, a word I did not know until they taught it to me. It had to do with the runoff from Route 9 that was directed into the pond, having to do with the fact that the Chestnut Hill Mall was built before the EPA had all kinds of wonderful regulations that we now have. And they asked me to save the pond. So that was a problem that needed to be solved, and so I told them I would do my best to solve that problem and save the pond. And so what I did, since I don't know anything about eutrophication, actually, I will admit that. I'm not an environmental scientist. What I did was draw together everyone who might have a stake in this and might have some knowledge about it. So I invited the state environmental protection folks. I invited the state Mass Highway Department because Route 9 is a state highway and was causing the problem. I invited the owners of the Chestnut Hill Mall because they were the business that abutted this and was clearly going to have to be part of the solution. I invited the city of Newton. I invited the Newton Conservators and the Green Decade Coalition because they are, of course, our voices on these issues. And I, of course, have invited the neighbors. And we began to meet regularly. I formed a task force, and I was committed that we would find a solution. We brought onto the task force people who were experts and who researched state-of-the-art practices for how to save ponds. We also brought in some people who knew how to write grants, and we started to research and we worked together. And the punchline of the story is that we eventually, after about 2 years of work and research, won a federal grant that we brought into the city. It was administered to through the state. I monitored it through the whole time. Even later, when there were a few bungles on deadlines on the part of the city, I called the state and said, please extend the deadline, and did everything I needed to do. And maybe if you drive by, and by the way, the Chestnut Hill Mall was a wonderful partner. They gave up parking spaces to grant us an easement so that we could do this state-of-the-art practice. And if you go by there, you'll see the work that's done around Hammond Pond. And I am very proud of that accomplishment, but I'm also sharing it because I think it is a good example of the way I would be a mayor. I would not assume that I necessarily have the answers, but I would assume that I can lead a process where we will find the answers and we will make the change we need to make in order to solve the problems. So I thank you very much tonight for being here for this first conversation about mayor, and I hope that you'll support me.